right. All right. Good afternoon, everybody, or good morning, depending on when you're checking this out. It's Omari, the hip hop hotel broker. I'm joined with, I would say a local legend, but that's not fair. When I do come to the state of New Orleans, I do call this brother to make sure I got my pass. Definitely one of the most knowledgeable individuals that I've come across in terms of brokerage exposure, but overall, not just in hotels, but just specifically just all facets of real estate, with a tremendous track record, not just throughout hospitality, but like I said, across various real estate classes. So the thing that we really like about doing these interviews and getting a chance to talk to people is letting folks see, a different side of the hospitality industry in a more casual format. And what you're about to get right now is access to a local expert, somebody who has, I transact across a lot of different markets, and I don't live in them. So you're talking about somebody who's a native, but has a really in-depth understanding of the New Orleans market, a market that a lot of people know. And if you don't know, you know something about it, and I'm sure you love. So I'm gonna hand it right over now to my man, Chris Ross, to give, fill in the holes of anything that I might have left out about your background.
No, man, I think you've done a good job. One of the things I do like to tell, a part of my story, I'm as New Orleans as if you're gonna get, right? And also, my background is hospitality, not just from brokering hotels, but for over the 20 years I've worked on Bourbon Street. So that's definitely something I like to shine and let people know that, I think the most valuable thing for a lot of us is keeping our ear to the ground and what's going on. So I like to literally be on the ground and kind of hear what's going on in the business, which I think gives me a edge over my contemporaries, because when you're doing these larger transactions, you get caught in the clouds and don't understand necessarily what's happening. So I think that makes me stand out amongst a lot of people that for doing what we do.
Absolutely, man. And like you said, working on Bourbon Street, that really puts you in the thick of it. And like you said, for what, 20 years?
28, yep.
Yeah, wow, yeah. You're definitely a custodian of the culture, of being able to see the transitions of New Orleans and what it was and what it's become and what it is becoming, and obviously what it's survived. So, always great to link with people like you that have that view on many different levels. So you talked a little bit about how long you've been doing this, but tell me a bit about the type of brokerage that you do, that you have done, and maybe some of your favorite areas to focus in.
Sure. I've been with Latter Blum for a little over 22 years, and right now I focus on hospitality, and that means a number of things, not just large hotel transactions, the smaller hotels, economy, limited select, so forth and so on with that, and also bed and breakfasts, and have been really transitioning and selling some Airbnb investment type situations. I mean, if a person got a multi-family that's Airbnb, what's the income and the cash flow from that, and then trying to sell those to investors. So that's what I specialize in right now. My time at Latter Blum, I've covered all of the different genres, divisions, disciplines within the business, from industrial, retail, manufacturing, multifamily, all of it. I've done every facet of the business.
So when you start talking, you touched on something that I think a lot of people would have interest in, and what we've seen a great rise in is the B&B space, bed and breakfast, and also the morph of the bed and breakfast from the shared economy of Airbnbs, and then you have even other people who swerved in a different lane and got fancy with it, and they have like the apartment companies that are leasing out stuff as hotels. Talk a little bit about what that looks like in the New Orleans market.
Well, bed and breakfast is a big hit, man. And I think they're gaining popularity with a lot of our folks, let's call it that, because it's more experiential. It's more about the experience of being there than they're just a place to stay. They're all pretty local in ownership. They're all very local in experience. So it's something that, an added thing to the business that I think a good entry point for some people as well, because of the fact that the price points to start at, $1 million, sub $1 million to get into the deal, to where some of these larger hotels, 5 million plus. So I think that it helps in regards to that. But yeah.
So when you've seen some of these deals, like you said, just using very round numbers, like $1 million price point, about how many units would that get you for B? I know it depends on the location, and just the New Orleans architecture really makes it right for that B&B space. And you touched on something that was crucial. It's smaller, so you're able to operate it, right? The other thing is that when you look at at having an experience-based service, and I was just talking about this with on another interview about the interesting thing. If you look at it from a historical point in America, African Americans, when they traveled, they weren't allowed to stay in hotels, right? So we traditionally traveled to see people, not things. So because you couldn't get into the things when you got wherever you were going, so you were visiting your family. So these B&Bs that were community based, that had local hosts, that's a model that has been around for decades out of a matter of survival. And to see that going through a revival in a city like New Orleans, what does kind of like one of those deals look like, where it might be $1 million or $1.5 million for a B&B? Like, what type of rooms how many rooms would somebody get? And, approximately what are you seeing in terms of down payment contribution?
Well, if you're talking about $1 million, my assumption is you're probably talking about something small, decent, 5 to 6 units, something like that. What was the other part of the question, Omari?
And what are you talking about? What are you seeing in terms of down payments? Obviously, that depends on the type of, buyer and relationship with lenders, but kind of a range.
Yeah, $1 million, 200, 250, 25% of the deal is I think what you'll typically see in those transactions. But again, I think the ones that I've encountered, there's so much more upside in just getting rooms, right? So there's the experience of throwing weddings. There's the experience of maybe having a small restaurant bar as a part of it, which helps in you offsetting some of that down payment and cost, because now you're showing multiple streams of income. And so in situations, unfortunately, like we got going on right now in the pandemic, as the city and things open back up and tourism may not be necessarily where it is, you can have other income coming in from these different streams.
Absolutely. So you're able to be a lot more diversified, and you're not just pushing heads and beds. There's,
correct,
the opportunity, like you said, through experiences of wedding or food and beverage.
Yeah.
So, I market myself as a hip hop hotel broker. Hip hop is real important to me. So you're in a city where there's been definitely some influential, artists in general, where music is part of it's just really ingrained into the culture. And, from the fact that the airport is named after a musician, right? You had Six Flags over Jazzland. Like, it's part of the culture, more so from a jazz perspective. But, talk to me about, what hip hop artist or what hip hop song kind of describes your approach to doing business.
Well, I'll take two, if that's okay.
Yes, sir.
I think Jay-Z, A Moment of Clarity, is a powerful song. It hits well with me because once I got into the space, it was really a moment of clarity that they're no smarter, better educated than we are. So it was a real moment of clarity when you get around folks and they have this mythical kind of air about certain things, this person's transaction, this, and 100 million, 200 million, whatever it is. At the end of the day, we all are people, and you all should have the confidence in going in and having that conversation with those people, and have the confidence to ask questions when you don't understand something.
Yeah.
To move forward. So, Moment of Clarity is a good national song, and if I'm gonna pay homage to the local legend and Master P, yes, my song would be "I'm Bout It, Bout It," right? So I'm about it, man. So whatever it is, if you want me to sell a hotel, industrial site, retail, yeah, I got you. I'm about it,
I love it. That's dope, man. And it's, New Orleans hip hop scene, man, in I'd probably say the 90s to 2000. Yeah. It just really activated the South in a whole different, and it also had some long lasting long-lasting changes on the overall hip-hop industry, right? Just from the legends and the way that people set stuff up, specifically like the Cash Money Camp and No Limit Records. And it was interesting. I didn't really acknowledge that, until recently. And that had a lot to do with like Nipsey Hussle, who later, if we discovered posthumously, was an investor in the Virgin Hotel. But he always shouted out Master P for being a legend, for really talking about entrepreneurship and really, putting people on and really coming together to do business together and creating content and material. And I just thought that was so unique. And for me recently, I'll probably say my favorite New Orleans artist overall is Jay Electronica.
Mm-hmm.
That's a real dope brother, and to see him with an album out and with somebody that you just mentioned as having a song that kind of defines your career. So, but what type of artists are you listening to right now? What hip hop artists are you vibing out to? And I know it probably depends on what you're doing, but so kind of talk to me a little bit about that.
I mean, I like, it's crazy. Right now, I like Megan. I like Megan Thee Stallion.
Okay.
I like her. I like her the kind of way she's positioned herself in that business. I like Kendrick Lamar.
Yeah.
Of course. Conscious rapper, but it doesn't come across as beating it over your head with conscious rap.
Not preaching.
He's not preaching to you, exactly. And lastly, I'll say, on just the hip hop side, I'm listening to, it's a little ratchet in me, but I like the baby, so
That's well-rounded.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's interesting, though, you mentioned Kendrick Lamar, and like you said, he has the consciousness, the content, but it's not preachy. And I think that also is how you present yourself. That's one thing that kind of made me gravitate towards you, was that you had the knowledge, you have a lot of game, you're not going to overwhelm somebody with it, or let me say overwhelm, you're not going to come across condescending with it. You've always made yourself very approachable. What would you say is the best way for a first-time hotel owner or investor, somebody who's looking at a deal, to approach you the best way to get the best response? Yourself and or any other broker?
Just ask the questions, man. Go in, ask questions, be very open in what you know and what you don't know. And don't feel any type of way about a question. I mean, if you don't know what how this property's land in regards to contribution is, so if you don't know what that is, just ask the question. Mm-hmm. I think that you show your lack of I think some people think it is in knowledge, but I think it's a lack of maturity when you're afraid to ask questions of the things that you don't know. Nobody has all of the answers. Approach, ask questions, be inquisitive about not just the property. What are the things that are affecting that property? How's that property function? What's the next move for that property? Is it coming up for a PIP? Is it coming out for the other PIP? Is it up branding opportunity there? Is it down branding opportunities there? Sometimes it's better to bring it down to something you may have it function better, and don't, be so, I talk about this with you all the time, Omari. Don't be so amazed by the $50 million Marriott. There's a lot of money to be made in the $2 million, $3 million days in. And given what we have going on right now, Wood Springs, which is a lower end brand, is thriving. And Hampton Inns and whatnot aren't doing as well as they could have been against that. So I would just say, be open to all of it, not just caught up in the fallacy of this huge hotel and what all of that is. If you're about making money and if it's about bottom line, focus on that. And if you do that, I think that, listen, Blackstone just invested in Extended Stay America. So that should tell you something right there.
Yeah. Blackstone, I think it was Starwood Capital Group.
Yeah.
Extended Stay America's Q1 report, they were able to pop their collar and a real serious. I think they were touting something like 60% across the brand. Choice just did their Q1 earnings. I posted about this, and I want to say across the Woodspring brand, it was something like 70% occupancy.
Wow.
It's stupid because the national average is in the low 20s, you know, and you have 14% of hotels closed. You know, between 14 and 17% of hotels closed, with the estimate that 2% are just of supplies just never coming back, just not able to recover. Because what we did have before going into the pandemic was an all-time high of supply in the pipeline, and then this happened, and it just kind of accelerated some people that were teetering on the edge. So when you talk about you know, looking at these economy hotels and you know, also but being able to be comfortable with looking at the larger hotels, tell me a little bit about like what is the largest hotel in terms of key count or dollar amount that you've sold?
Let me think for a second. Well, the largest deal that we sold was actually a conversion to a Royal Sonesta. It was $32 million transaction, 155 keys. I think they moved it up to 160 keys or so. So that was the largest transaction that I've ever been a part of. There's another deal that we did, which ultimately became a larger deal, being in a NOPSI building. We sold that building. It was, I don't know, a $6 or $7, $8 million transaction, but I think that hotel just refinanced at over 90 million or something like that. So some crazy number, right? So yeah, so those are the two largest ones that I've been involved in.
Awesome. So, you know, and you've also done some work with the economy hotels there locally, also with bed and breakfast, because you are indeed about it. What parts of New Orleans do you feel that is slept on in terms of for opportunities to own hotels? A and B, what is kind of some, and this will pivot me into the second question, maybe you can think about it while you're talking, is what are some of the misunderstandings about the New Orleans market and the surrounding areas?
To answer the first part of the question, where I think some of the opportunity areas are, some of the university areas. Gentilly with Dillard, I think in the mid-city area with Xavier, I think there's definitely opportunities there, especially given what's going on. But what was the second part, Omar?
The second part was, what are some kind of misunderstandings about the hotel business in New Orleans and surrounding markets?
Well, I mean, I think I don't even know if it's a misunderstanding. It's very revealing that, you know, the majority of our hotels are all based on tourism, you know, and so I think people would have that perception, but it is the reality, just like Vegas, right? I mean, all of that is that, but yeah, so I see that as where the opportunities are. I think in the space is going to be, again, there's not a Wood Springs in the market here locally in New Orleans proper. So I think there's an opportunity to do a Wood Springs here somewhere. There's also not a Comfort Suites, any of the Choice products, because Marriott and Starwood has dominated the market. And on the bed and breakfast side, you know, coming out of this, I think some people may be leery to go and stay in big 250, 300, 500 room hotel. Maybe they like something smaller to keep their, you know, like Megan Thee Stallion say, keep my numbers down, you know, because the less people that you're exposed to.
I love it. Facts. You know, it's wild because we were talking about that with some other cats, and, you know, these 2-story exterior corridor hotels, people, you know, weren't feeling them for years. And ultimately, as we start to see more women to travel, it became more of a safety concern. And even myself as a male traveling, you know, something where my door opens up to the outside is less attractive. But now you telling me that I can drive up and pull 50 feet away from my door, not have to walk through a lobby unnecessarily for some stuff that I'm not going to get or do, and be at my room, and there's no central air, and there's a P-TAC, you know, and maybe there's 3 stairways, maybe there's an elevator, maybe there isn't. But to your point, like you said, these B&Bs, you know, you're not worried about elevators. Somebody was telling me what they have to do with some of these hotels that are still open, like the luxury properties. They have people taking the temperature before you come in. you know, you got to call somebody and they'll key off the elevator and bring it up to you and ride up and down with it in a mask. Like, it's a lot, you know? And so these are hotels that sounded glorious to own 2 years ago. They were trophy pieces. But right now, you know, these economy properties, 2-story exterior corridor, that really might be the move moving forward until we get this under control. So, you know, being able to pivot for guests has always been a thing, right? Guests has been able to move back and forth. You know, management companies have been able to pivot as new brands come on board. So talking about pivoting in a market like New Orleans, where you talking about no large meetings roughly until 2021. I don't know if they've rolled back that ordinance yet. We just talked about how strong it is and dependent on tourism. And statewide across Louisiana, 65,000 hotel jobs have been lost. What are some of those other demand generators that are beyond just tourism that you think will keep the market, you know, maybe not afloat, but from completely just zeroing out?
Sure. I think that we need to, first off, we need to stop, in my opinion, we need to stop. We're here, right? This is the reality of today. So what are we going to do? So there's been a lot, the reason I say there's been a lot of infighting amongst the administration and hotel and hospitality owners and whatnot of the closing or not closing of the city. It's closed. It's going to be closed for the near future. What do we need to do? First off, I think we need to focus on the drive markets. I think we have a good drive market. Florida, Alabama, Mississippi. We need to focus on how we can get some of those people to come in with us right now, right? Because of what we have going on. I think also the wedding business, I think that's something that you can focus on as well, because some weddings don't have as much lead time as some of these larger conventions is concerned. So I think that's a good area to focus on. And I would say finally, you know, I think when we do get here, people here, you know, focus on service, right? And the experience that you give to every guest customer that comes in. It depends on who you talk to. Sometimes New Orleans may come across as great in service, and sometimes we may come across as the worst place ever. So I think that, you know, being that there's not going to be as many guests, you need to make sure that you spoil all the ones that definitely come through the doors. Indeed.
You know, it was a market where there was a lot of planned supply as well. If you had your crystal ball, you know, how much of that planned supply do you think actually comes into fruition? And what 1 or 2 projects do you think that you were actually looking forward to see as new supply that you think would have been good stories for the city?
Well, as far as the new supply and stuff that's going to happen on the planned side, I would say less than 10% of the stuff that was planned is going to happen within the time frame that they had planned it, right? Hotel I was definitely looking forward to is the extension of Harrah's. Harrah's is going to add a new tower to their property, so I was interested in that, and the convention center hotel. That's, you know, it's planned for 1,500 rooms. I think it's going to go away for a while, but even when it comes back, it's not going to be 1,500 rooms. You know, I think that's going to be sub 1,000 or so. So I'm looking forward to that, but that's on the plan side. Now there are some that's under development that I'm looking forward to. The Four Seasons, I would say they're probably 40% underway there. So in the next 2 years or so, they'll come online. I think with this situation, some people who are pregnant, right? You have the deal is happening. You can't control the construction as much, but you can definitely control when it opens. So I think that some people are going to have to, just because it is, continue with the construction, and then going to have to hold back a slow roll opening of the hotels.
Awesome. What are some of those other developments? I know you talked about Harrah's expanding. Any other like expansions or renovations or developments going on in the city that you think will be an increased demand driver? I know there's some stuff going on at the airport or some hospitals opening up. Anything you think that would be good stories to tell for the city?
Well, you hit on the main one. Well, a couple of them. The airport, We have a brand new shiny airport, which is, you know, it's going to be even newer because it ain't being used right now, right? So definitely that's an upside. The hospital, it's probably been open for about 3-4 years now. It's coming online. What we've learned here in New Orleans, it is not that immediate kind of thing that happens. I think it's going to happen over the next 10 years and maybe the next 15, given COVID, in regards to what happens and develops around the hospital. The convention center is not an expansion as much as it is a total $500 million renovation of the property. So that's a huge thing that's actually still happening. And they're turning the front of it, which is Convention Center Boulevard, into a linear park. So that's going to happen. So I think in the next 2 years or so, or 3 years, as tourism and group and whatnot start to come back to normal, to today's levels, those investments will show that, you know, they happen at the right time. It may not seem right now, but they happen at the right time, because when tourism comes back, they're going to be ready. They're not going to have to be start off and planned and going through the process. They'll be up and running.
Awesome. What do you, now with the airport, I think that they moved the entrance of the airport, or is that still happening?
Yeah, they moved the airport entirely. So the airport that you used to come into is now going to be the private airport, and they built a whole new facility.
Wow.
So it's on the other side of where it is right now. So it doesn't front as much airline highways as it does Veterans.
Gotcha. Okay.
Interstate, I'm sorry.
So does that impact like hotels that were over there that were relying on airport business?
Totally.
Yeah. So what's kind of the new area for an airport hotel if somebody was looking to buy one or develop, or what kind of area should they be paying attention to over there?
Anything close to Veterans, which is kind of like the more front of the hotel than it is airline like it was before. So anything along Veterans Highway. I mean, our friend Ken sold a DoubleTree right there a couple months back. There's a Crown Plaza right there that could be acquired. There's also a couple of, you know, properties like La Quintas and whatnot that I think at some point is going to be taken over, raised, and then build something else newer. But I think right now, given what's going on, that's not going to happen for some time now.
What other markets, you know, kind of within a, let's call it 2 to 3 hour driving radius of New Orleans, do you feel are kind of slept on and are good opportunity for folks to look at that, you know, while New Orleans is sexy and you can fly in there and it's great and we all love Bourbon Street, that dollar amount is going to hit you over the head, right? Is, you know, so it may be less approachable. You know, you're in a top 25 market, and you're a broker with such great local expertise. And I imagine that, you know, some of these owners have stuff in suburbs or other cities, you know, 2-3 hours away, like a Baton Rouge and I'm going to just shout out random cities. I don't know the proximity.
No, you're right. I think you're right.
But, you know, what about some of those other cities that you think are good markets for people to pay attention to as well? I
mean, I think you hit one key one is Baton Rouge, of course, Lafayette, smaller cities like Hammond, which aren't as far from us, LaPlace. I think those are probably the top ones that I would think at some or would be, you know, open for some investment, because you can get to New Orleans pretty quickly, but they're their own place.
Gotcha.
So if you would make an investment there, somebody say I can stay in Baton Rouge and still travel to New Orleans for whatever. It's only a 45-minute ride or something.
Okay. And now, any good overflow markets for New Orleans that folks might want to pay attention to? Because those hotels, and this is just me kind of thinking kind of randomly here, those hotels, you know, they may have been benefiting from, you know, overflow in New Orleans when it got compressed. It's not going to be any overflow for a while. So their demand generators, their local and more regional demand generators are really getting tested. Did New Orleans have any overflow markets that you think might be, that there might be some properties come up, you know, in trouble, or they might be exposed because they were just simply relying on overflow that might be for somebody to pay attention to? Absolutely.
The Metairie Kenner area. I think those that's definitely a compression market that, that secondary market that was looking for the benefit of the compression in New Orleans. So to your point, I think there may be some opportunities there.
Good idea. Good idea. That's definitely something for folks to look at. So what's a good way for people to reach out to you? Preferred contact medium, email? What's a good way? LinkedIn? They slide in the DMs. How do they reach out to Chris?
Well, you know, cell phone is probably best. 504. I don't know if you're gonna put stuff up after this, but 504-352-1492. 504-352-1492 is the best way to get me. Or you can try my email address, cross@latterblum.com. CROSS@LATTERBLUM.com.
Awesome. Awesome. Any final words of wisdom that you would want to impart on somebody looking to venture into the hotel business? What would kind of be just your quick bars of inspiration for them?
You know, the gift of life is the present. So to think about what you did or what you want to do is great, but you have to focus on today. So what are we going to do today to be a hotel owner, a hotel broker, anybody in the business of hospitality? Start today and look at it that way, and then that'll propel you to accomplishing all the dreams that you want to.
I love it. I love it. Hey, appreciate your time today, man, and thank you for imparting some words on the audience. And I think this is going to be tremendously valuable to folks looking to really get some knowledge, not just on the market in New Orleans, but also just on overall hotel acquisition. So I appreciate you making yourself available for this, brother.
Man, thank you for the opportunity, brother. And as always, you know, you keep doing your thing.
Appreciate it, man. Thank you.
All right, man.
Peace.